Hello everyone and welcome to The Horn, where today our guest is David Starr, the driver who we are sponsoring in the Cup Series race on October 17. David, welcome.
Good to see you, man.
So David, I'm thinking you were in North Carolina until a couple of days ago?
I was in Statesville, North Carolina. You know, our racing team is based there. You know, that's where our shop's at. So, yeah, I went, when I left Michigan, instead of flying back to Dallas, I left Detroit, Michigan Sunday night and flew into Charlotte and drove up about 30 miles to Statesville, North Carolina, because our racing team, that's where the hub, that's where our shops are, where we house our race cars and keep our hauler, our equipment. And so I wanted, since I was racing in two races here in Daytona this weekend, I wanted to come to make sure my, preparations, all about preparation, just make sure my seats and my seat belts and the steering location of your steering wheel in your car. You know how you buy a new car, you get in somebody's car or your wife's car, and you got to move the seat forward, move it back, lay the seat back, or pull the seat. You know, somebody I don't like to lay back when I drive. Pull the back part of the seat up forward, or use the tilt on the steering wheel. Same process, and help them wrap the car. So I was just involved in the process because we're racing in two races, and I just want to make sure that we were prepared as much as we could before we got to the racetrack.
Now, so having two races in the same weekend, is that not unusual?
Well, I mean, it's not really. I mean, NASCAR has the NASCAR Xfinity Series race usually on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday night, and follow it by the next day, Sunday, the NASCAR Cup Series race, So having the opportunity to race in both of them is exciting and fun, and so not unusual. A lot of other people have done it in the past and still do it today. But for us, this is our fourth or fifth time this year to do it. So I'm excited and just wanted to make sure when we got to the racetrack that we wasn't doing a lot of unnecessary work that should be done before you get to the racetracks.
Okay, one of the two races you're doing this weekend is a restrictor plate race, is it not?
It is. It's a restrictor plate race, and at these super speedways we call in Daytona, under the carburetor on the Xfinity side, you use a restrictor plate, and it just kind of NASCAR controls how much air they want to let the engine suck in. When you have fuel and air a mixture, you have speed, horsepower, so they kind of govern how big the holes are in the restrictor plate. That's they're choking the engine down with air to keep the cars from going 207 or 208 miles an hour. So it keeps the cars, they're fast, especially in the draft, they're fast. But sometimes, if you're going too fast, something goes bad, the cars can flip over. I mean, they flip over, fly in the air, and so NASCAR does a good job from a safety aspect of keeping the excitement level there, but also working on the safety side as well.
Yes. Now, you mentioned, David, super speedway track. Is there a difference between a regular speedway track and a super speedway track?
Yeah, super speedway track is a racetrack that's 2 miles and longer. If you start at the start-finish line and said you're going to jog a lap or walk a lap, when you got back to the start-finish line, you'd walk 2 miles or 2.6 miles or 2.5 miles. Daytona International Speedway, we'll be racing tonight and tomorrow night, is 2.5 in length, and a lot of banking in the corners, and man, it's fast. It's fun.
I'll bet. When we visited with you a month or so ago, you were driving us round the track at well under half the speed you're talking about. But boy, oh boy, it still felt really fast to me. But I mean, I remember you said that back at Texas Motor Speedway, you differentiated between the 20-degree slope, if I remember rightly, and the 24-degree slope. Do you have any preference when it comes to the angle of the turns as you go around the motor speedway tracks?
Neil, that's a great question, and that's what makes all the different racetracks around the country. They all have their own characteristics, and a lot of racetracks, the fast ones, and a lot of the super speedways like Daytona and Talladega, they're banking. They got like 32 degrees of banking, and if you were flat and you go 32 degrees, that's why we can run 200 miles an hour, 195 miles an hour, because you're almost like in a bowl. So yeah, the different racetracks we race across the country, some got banking, some are flat. There's every racetrack's different, has its own characteristics. So that's what makes it unique and interesting every week. The different forms and different types of racetracks we race at.
Now, I remember you told me, David, that sometimes you can go into the curves without hardly touching the steering wheel. How does that work?
Well, and you're always touching the steering wheel. What I'm saying is when you come off turn 4 at the Texas Motor Speedway, you can come off turn 4, never really turn the wheel left and right, and then next thing you know, you're turning into turn 1. Just the racetracks, it might have pretty cool lanes on it, but you're crossing the lanes. It ain't like on the public streets where we got to follow the lanes. For safety purposes. In racing, man, we're all cutting the lanes, and we're actually driving straight, and the racetrack's moving in and out, but we're going straight. And sometimes when I show people that, it's kind of hard to understand it until you're out there seeing what we're doing. But it's a lot of fun.
You bet. But you mentioned several times during our conversation just now, but also when we met in the past, the safety of NASCAR. And indeed, you showed me the barriers on the outside and on the inside of the track that have been added in the last few years. Can you tell our audience a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, safety, and I don't care what industry you're working in, there's safety in every industry. And, safety does not discriminate. It doesn't color what nationality you are, where you're from. And if we're, our financial status, then nothing matters with safety, and so especially in our industry, when you're racing at racetracks across the country at 200 miles an hour, that's our job. That's what we get paid to do. So we want to make sure that we can take care of our family financially, but when we get done working, we want to get off work and go home to our families and our kids. And so if you're flipping in the air at 200 miles an hour, or somebody hits you, you want to make sure you survive that. A lot of safety. The safety in our sport has come a long way. And a couple things is the softball. We used to, at the racetracks across the country, we were just talking about the different types of racetracks. Well, we used to hit a concrete wall that was probably 12 inches thick and about, 4 feet high. And now when we hit a wall, it's aluminum wall, and it's got styrofoam behind it. And it's just kind of it cushions the the hit. If you hit a wall, instead of the G-forces being 10 G-forces as you hit it, it probably cuts it down to about 4. So there's been a lot of safety innovations in the sport of auto racing in the last 20 years.
You showed me a neck brace that was introduced not so long ago.
Great device. The late, great Dale Earnhardt, that was a 7-time champion in our sport and just one of the heroes of our industry. I remember back in 1991 to 2000, we lost about 9-10 NASCAR race car drivers. And you're watching this live on television, and I don't care if it's NFL or Major League Baseball or whatever. People want to see the excitement and the fire and the sparks. People don't want to see people lose their lives. You know what I mean? And so unfortunately, we lost, I believe it was 9 drivers in a 9-year span. So our sport needed to go to work. And I would say, sadly, that those 9 drivers that lost their lives, they were breaking their necks. And so NASCAR, working with, I forget what university, they came up with the Hans device that sits on your shoulders. And your shoulder belts, your safety harness in your race car, your seat belts that we have in our cars, they hold that Hans device to your body. That's what connects it to your body. That Hans device is held on over your shoulders and kind of covers part of your chest. And coming off that Hans device is 2 straps that hook to the back of your helmet. And the straps will not let your neck stretch, because your neck can only stretch so far. And when you're running, 190 to 200 miles an hour, if you hit something, it's that sudden stop that hurts you. and something's got to give. And, your neck will only stretch so far. The next thing you know, you end up breaking your neck, and it takes your life. So NASCAR showed us that the Hans device was something that would definitely save your life in a bad accident. And I can assure you from after Dale Earnhardt was killed, I remember when that Hans device came out, one of the things that Dale Earnhardt said to the media was, our sport is for tough men and tough women. But like I said earlier, safety does not discriminate. And, it wasn't 5 months later, he ended up losing his life because he didn't have that Hans device on, and he had a wreck and it broke his neck. And ever since we lost Dale Earnhardt back in 2001, 20 years ago, we haven't had a death in our sport since Dale Earnhardt. And I take my hat off to our sport, to NASCAR, with all the innovations in safety. One of the big ones was the soft walls, like we're talking about the walls just a minute ago. The Hans device is a big safety innovation, but there's been lots of safety innovation in our sport. And now, we're not losing our drivers, and that's a good thing for our sport.
This is really great to know, David. Thank you. Last time you and I met, you were looking forward to going on vacation with Kim and your sons, and I know that you spend a lot of time on the road. How do you cope with being away from your family for so much of the time?
Man, Neil, that's a great question, and that's I guess the most challenging part of doing what we do, having the job that we have, because our races aren't in Texas the whole time. We race all over the country. But one of the things I can share with you, when I met her as my girlfriend, I was doing what I'm doing today. And then as we dated, and then we figured out that, hey, we could probably live with each other forever. We got married, we're still doing the same thing. So that's our normal. That's ever since I met her, our life's been the same, So it's kind of funny because if I'm at home for 2 or 3 weeks, she's kind of wondering when I'm leaving. But having a couple weeks off and not racing, or 3 weeks, and having time to catch up as a dad, catch up being a husband, catching up some honeydews around your house is not a bad thing, but it works out pretty good. I have a great wife that's a great wife, a great mother. She takes care of the homestead when I'm gone, and usually when I get home Sunday afternoon or Monday mornings, there's never a dull moment. They could add another day in the week, and it wouldn't hurt us. But anyway, it all works for us.
You betcha. David, very much looking forward to seeing you in person next week. And I know that our audience and myself as well, and everyone at ConectUS and Kyocera want to wish you the best of luck for a very successful weekend this weekend in Daytona.
All right,
I look
Neil.
forward to that.
See you then, buddy. Have a good weekend.